Hey guys, Dylan from Noble Records coming at you with another video. Doing another episode of Heavy Rotation. This is part 10. I'm doing these every single week to kind of show you guys what I'm listening to, the records I'm finding, all that stuff. Just kind of what I've been into that week. This week I have been watching a lot of music documentaries, so that's affected some of the records that I've been picking up. So we'll go into that, and then the metal collection that I got recently that I've talked a bunch about. I'm still going through that stuff and still pulling some things out for myself. So that's all in this video. First, I want to show you this King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album. The new album just came out like last, I think Friday maybe. But this is in that brown paper bag. This is the actual cover. This is Explorations into Microtonal Tuning, Volume 2. Really cool concept. So King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. As you know, I mean, I love them. They have a lot of different sounds throughout the years. Like they'll do a few albums one way and then they'll switch it up and switch it up. So they have a lot of different genres that they explore. So it's hard to kind of put your finger on one. They're known as like neo psych, you know, but they've done quite a few albums in microtonal tuning, which basically is just a different way to tune your guitars. And I assume the bass is also microtonal. Like if you pick this album up and you wanted to learn how to play it on guitar, there's just no way you could do it. It's not possible because the frets on their guitars are in different places. So you can look up what microtonal tuning is. It's insane. There's different types of microtonal tuned guitars. Lord of mercy. It's 2 a.m. so I'm tripping over that. But sometimes like you can look it up. I'll let you look it up. But anyways, it's a very interesting concept, and it's amazing that they're able to do it. So I'll give them that. It's very cool. I like the microtonal albums, but they're all blending together at this point. So this is not like the best thing I've ever heard. It's good. Microtonal tuning's almost like the electric guitars sound a little bit like I would imagine sitar tuning to sound like if you were to electrify a sitar. It just has that same kind of feel to it. So I don't know. Maybe that's a bad description, and I don't mean to criticize. I do like the album. It's very good, but it sounds a lot like some of the other microtonal albums that they have. And I don't like, I see people that do these album reviews and stuff, and I never want to do that just because I think it's weird to judge other people's art. I just think that's weird. I don't think that that's something that I'm interested in getting into, because there's albums that I absolutely love that no one else likes, and there's albums that everybody likes I just don't get. So to each their own. I talked about this in my last video just a little bit, just barely touched on it. But these Pentagram records. So I got both of these in the metal collection. Very cool records. And I kind of went into in my last video how I had heard of them from a compilation that I got. Someone traded into the shop. And so I threw them on, and it's very good, like early Doom metal stuff. I mean, it's very different from stuff that was in that time. So these records came out. This one came out in the mid 80s, like 84, 85. And so it's just different from the metal that was coming out then, 84, 85. And I talked about this very briefly, just a little bit. And then someone commented, and if you commented, thank you so much, because they said, if you like those albums, you need to watch Last Days Here, which is a documentary on Bobby Liebling, I think that's how you say his name, which is the lead singer of Pentagram. So I watched that documentary, and it was amazing. It was a total insight into him and like how the albums were made. And so like I'll talk about it very briefly, but because I don't want to spoil it for you, but I want to entice you enough to watch it, because it is very much worth a watch, even if you're not into that type of thing. It's really cool story. So basically, this guy finds this record, this album at a record show, and he's blown away by it. And he goes and tracks the lead singer, Bobby Liebling, down. And he finds him and tries to work with him, but the guy's like very addicted to drugs, living in his parents' basement, sub-basement, whatever that means. And he's just got a really rough life. And like the documentary starts out like talking to Bobby Liebling. He is on, like, hanging on by a thread. Said he's been addicted to heroin for like 40 years. It's insane. So it goes through the process of this guy trying to get Bobby Liebling back on stage with the original lineup. It is an excellent documentary. I loved it. Every second of it, I loved it. So that put me down the rabbit hole to do research on this band. That's how it happens with me and probably everybody else all the time. So that made me realize how awesome it was that I had these records, because there's a lot of people that look for them forever and never find them. So I'm glad that I had the foresight to say, hey, this is something that I want to hang on to because I may never see it again, because they're very rare. So I've been listening to these like crazy. I really, really love them. But in the course of this guy finds out that Pentagram has recordings back to like 1971. And they had this, even before this, they had this really killer, hard and heavy, acid-soaked fuzz guitar explosion of a band that's very Sabbath-esque, like back in the early 70s. And they just couldn't get their crap together enough to like do anything. Well, it wasn't them as much as it was the lead singer. Just couldn't stay clean, and like was very fiery, and it's a very cool story how it happens. It's very unfortunate, but it's a very good story. That's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to ruin it for you. But so there's some early material that they put on these compilations that are recordings, like spare recordings from these different songs. Really cool stuff. As I was going through that, I remembered, so they talked about how they had kind of released a cassette under the name Death Row. And this is the cassette, Death Row, All Our Sins. Or All Your Sins. This is the name of one of their songs. So this is an original, and I actually got this in that metal collection. There was a lot of tapes, so this tape was also in there, and it's in like really good shape. It's got all the liner notes and everything. But the funny thing is that, so I was thinking, oh man, I'm gonna listen to this and it's gonna be a different album, and but anyways, this is the exact same thing as this self-titled Pentagram album. But it's very, very cool. This is like probably the most collectible cassette I've ever had. So I remember seeing that when I went through the cassettes, and I was like, I gotta go look through the cassettes and see if I can find it. So I did find it, and it's very, very cool to have. So anyways, all that to say, that documentary is called Last Days Here. It is on YouTube, and I'll try to put a link below if you want to watch it. It's free on YouTube. You can watch it now, and it's awesome. So anyways, moving on. This always takes longer than I think, because I get excited and talking about records and I forget how long it's taken. So this is a really cool record that I got. Her name is Claudia Lanier, and the name of the album is Phew, P-H-E-W. Claudia Lanier, L-E-N-N-E-A-R. But this is an album I just like. I don't know where I got it. I mean, someone, I think, sold it to me at the shop. I think someone traded it in. I've never heard of it before, but that cover, I was a little bit thrown by it, because the cover itself looks like it could be one of those albums that's not an older album, but it's trying to look like an older album. Or it could be like a Donna Summer-esque 80s pop album. It's none of that. This album's from 1973, and it's amazing. I pulled it aside, and I was like, I gotta listen to it. It looks so cool, and it feels so cool. I'll show you. This is the full picture there. But Claudia Lanier was really awesome. She sang in a female soul group called the Superbs. And then she got an audition to sing and become an ICAT for Ike and Tina Turner. She was an ICAT for a few years, and then she like acted in some movies, and she finally put out her own record, her solo record. So she's known as one of the great background singers. She also sang background for Joe Cocker, for Leon Russell, some other people. But anyways, that's not what's important. This album is phenomenal. I was like shocked how good it was. It's very it's got this really rich, soulful funk vibe to it, and she's singing. It's almost got some Betty Davis vibes to it. Very cool. But the background music is a lot like the meters type stuff. That really good soul. Some really cool players on here, one of which Ry Cooder plays on this, which is crazy. They had some really great players, really great production on this album for it to be something that I don't think a lot of people know about. Maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe this is a blind spot for me. But I don't think this is a super popular record. But it's a really cool record. If you're able to find one, they're not expensive. They're like 20, 25 bucks. But this one's like mint, and I grabbed it, and I was like shocked when I picked up how good it was. It was like on point. This one's this is Vinyl Me Please sent me this Erykah Badu, Mama's Gun. This is a really cool record. And Erykah Badu is one of these R&B vocalists that I've heard so much about and so many people talk about, but I've never really delved into her music very much. And got this album, and I listened to it a couple times, and it's really, really good. It's one of those things. It's not something that is super popular because this is not like, stuff you probably hear a lot on the radio. It's a little out there. It's just like Lauryn Hill, but a little bit more spacey and funky, like just kind of out there stuff, But so I think that's probably why it's not something that we all know and we've heard on the radio. But she's very influential to a lot of people. She accompanies a lot of different artists and a lot of different tracks and stuff like that. So this is a very cool record. It's like avant-garde R&B, like neo R&B. It's killer. It's really good stuff if you're into that type of thing. So if you're into hip hop and stuff like that, this is something that you probably are familiar with her. But this is a great album, and I think that like Vinyl Me Please, some of the things that they put out is really good and intentional that they put out to shed light on certain things that a lot of people don't listen to, or a lot of people might listen to, but a lot of newer people don't, gravitate to, and they don't know. It's not, Fleetwood Mac rumors. And so I think a lot of people that are more in the vein that they're wanting to learn some things, they get a lot from Vinyl Me Please, so that's cool. This one is The Midnighters Unlimited. I got this in that attic a month or two ago, a couple months ago. This is a really cool record, and I'll have a very short story to tell about this. So if you've watched the attic videos, you know that the first time I went to the attic, I was told that it was picked over like 8 times by 8 different people and that there was nothing good left. And I found like a bunch of crazy stuff, like 13th floor elevators, like I'm trying to remember all the stuff. I like a ton of really crazy psychedelic stuff. I've been like 4 times now, and I'm still finding stuff. It's crazy. But when my friend told me it had been picked over, I was like, man, there's probably nothing good there. I mean, because there's so many record guys that know so much. Like, there's probably nothing good left there. And when I went, like, my mind was freaking blown. It was probably the best like dig. I went to someone's house, other than the metal collection, that I've had all year for sure. Maybe this is like once every decade you go to somebody's house and they have stuff like this. It's just nuts. And so the other guys had picked up a lot of the really normal stuff. There was no Zeppelin or Black Sabbath or Pink Floyd or anything like that. All that stuff had been put through, but the rare stuff was still there. And so I'll give you a story. When I was a kid, me and my dad would go on the beach and look for shark's teeth. We loved it. We spent a lot of time doing it during the summertime. Loved it. And I remember I think it was the first year I really got into it. I had found a shark tooth that was like that big. That was the first one I found, and that like threw me into it. I loved it. I would dream about it all year to go in the summertime and look for shark's teeth. But anyways, so we were out there looking for shark's teeth, and this big, huge guy, wide as an ox, long ponytail. He had this necklace that had all these shark's teeth on it. They were huge. he looked like he lived at the beach. I mean, just massive guy. And he said, "You guys looking for shark's teeth?" And we said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Don't worry, I've already found them all." He pulls out a jar, and he's got a jar full of like awesome, huge shark's teeth. And he's like, I've been walking this beach all day. I found them all. And I was thinking, crap, we're not going to find any because he found them all. And we walked off, and my dad's like, "That guy's stupid. He can't find all the shark's teeth. There's no way." And I was like, well, I mean, he's been doing it forever. Like, he lives at the beach. And my dad's like, "The shark's teeth are everywhere. Don't listen to him. You can find shark's teeth. You can always, if you look, you can always find them." And we found a ton that day. And it just taught me a lesson that, like, it doesn't matter how much you think something has been picked through. There's still an opportunity for you to get things. And that's what happened here. But anyways, The Midnighters Unlimited is a really cool California garage / soul album. It's like, it's more garage rock than anything, but there are some slower numbers that have some soul vibes to them. But it's a really cool, rare record. And so as the fourth time I went this last time, I picked a bunch of stuff out, and I almost didn't look at all the records because I'd been through them a couple times, like 2 or 3 times I've been through them. And while he was kind of looking through the stuff I picked out and kind of adding up stuff and giving me a number, I saw this, and I'm like, how have I not picked this up? This is awesome. I didn't know what it was, but I was like, I'm definitely grabbing this. And so grabbed it, and it was just one of those things. Also found this in that attic, this Nico Desert Shore. This is a UK press. Nico is fantastic. It's one of those artists that I did not get right away. It's definitely an acquired taste, but after I fell in love with Velvet Underground Nico, I was able to appreciate the other Nico records. That was kind of the gateway for me. So I mentioned this very briefly many videos ago, but this Farmyard record, it's a band called Farmyard. They're out of New Zealand. Country rock, psychedelic country rock, but country rock. But this is very good. This is not what it's supposed to look like. This is the inner sleeve. This is an original press, 1970. The original presses are really rare, really tough to find. And they had, like, up until this year, there was no reissues of it. They didn't issue it anywhere else other than New Zealand. But this year they reissued it. So this is what the cover actually looks like. I'm going to show you. This is a reissue by the label Wawa, and they do a really good job. But this is what the original issue looked like. It was a bag. It's like a shopping bag that folded out, and then the original cover was just a white cover. So in here is just a plain white cover, and then in that white cover is that sleeve. So this is like an exact, almost exact replica of what it's really supposed to look like, but it's really like this plastic shopping bag that they came in. So as you can probably imagine, the original New Zealand press is rare anyways, but to have it with the original bag is like, those with the original bag go for like $1,000. I mean, because everyone threw the bag away, I guess. I mean, stuff like that doesn't last very long. So this is a really cool reissue of it. Now, I got the reissue, even though I had the original. Again, this is the original. The original is really rare. I mean, even one like this in condition is probably like a $150 record. But I got the reissue because this one has some noise and some crackle and doesn't have the bag. And if I want to show and talk about the record, like, this is nothing to look at. So I got the reissue. And then they also reissued Back to Fronting, which is their second record. Farmyard, Back to Fronting. And the first one's more country rock. This one goes deeper into like hard rock and prog. I very much prefer this one. This one's very good. And the originals of this are a couple $100. They're pretty rare, but this one doesn't have a bag with it. So those are really cool reissues that I just recently picked up. I thought I'd show you guys. Leon Bridges, Coming Home. This is a popular record. I'm just going to barely touch on it because you've heard about it a million times. But I just recently started listening to this again. I heard it when it first came out. And then that was 2015. And I've seen a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people buy it. Haven't really, it's whatever. But I was listening to it recently, and the song River, it's the last song on the album, came on, and I was like, man, that is a good song. And at certain times, like, a song hits you like that, and you're like, holy moly. And that song River is just like, if you want to build a playlist, throw that song on there. It's just, the songwriting's good, the vibe, like, it just invokes emotion. It's so good. But that song River is very good. I got this on a trade-in. This is Neil Young Harvest. This is a it's a Holland press, maybe? Yeah, Holland press. This is a like 70s Holland press on this like cream colored, peach colored vinyl. But I don't know if I'm having a hard time selling this, because this is an album I collect. It was just an album that when I was a kid completely changed my life. I picked it up because I didn't know much about Neil Young. I had bought the Decade triple LP greatest hits or whatever. And I was like slowly falling in love with Neil Young, and I saw this and the original, and it had that textured cover. It was so cool. And so I got it when I was a kid, and man, I wore this album out. It changed me so much in my songwriting. Well, I mean, I wrote songs then, I still do, but none of them are any good. But it changed my whole, like, being a musician and the way I saw music and the way I heard music. It just, Neil Young was a superhero in my head at the time. And, like, he still is. He's amazing. But so this album, when I see a weird one, I got to keep it. And then I talked about this a little bit last week. This one, Neil Young Harvest Moon, is absolutely incredible. This is just like, Neil Young is one of these guys that he made good music for so long. I mean, some guys, they make good music for 5 years, 10 years. And then you got guys like Neil Young and Tom Petty. This is a 2017 reissue. I had an original press of this. I probably should have kept it, but I listened to this versus that, and they crammed everything on one disc for the original press. I mean, I thought this one sounded better, so I think I sold the other one if I remember correctly. Guy was in the shop this weekend. Really super nice guy. I had met him a couple times before at some record shows. Hadn't seen him in a while. And I had this. We were talking about metal. And he's like, dude, if you don't have this Metal Church record, you need to have it. And I'm like, okay. I don't listen to, I've never listened to Metal Church at all. I am a metal noob. I like Metallica, Slayer, you know, a couple others that I'm getting into. I'm learning about metal right now because I got this metal collection. But I had 2 copies of this, and he's like, I've been dying for one. And he's like, you keep one, I'll keep one. I was like, okay, cool. And so I listened to it, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I pull one aside for myself, and I'll probably listen to it a few more times and probably end up keeping it. But it's a cool record. This video here is getting very long, so I'm trying to be quick. This record here, The Runaways, amazing record. It's too tough to find. Like, I don't know why they don't come around that often. I hardly ever see them. Like, Runaways records, for how popular they were, they don't pop up very often. And this is a second press. This doesn't have the gatefold. I like to get a first press with the gatefold, but I'll come across one at some point. But I just made up my mind. Next time I see a Runaways record, I'm keeping it, because this album is so freaking good. I mean, these girls are like 15 to 17 years old, or 16 to 17 years old. I guess they're all 16, and then Lita Ford was 17. But I mean, you got Lita Ford and Joan Jett in the same band. I mean, Sandy West. This is a super group of, I mean, can you imagine, like, seeing these like 16-year-old girls just rocking the crap? I mean, amazing for their age. It's unreal. But such a good album. And you know, Lita Ford, she went on to have a very successful like solo career, and Joan Jett did also. But it's a really good record. I love it so much. My first introduction to this was Cherry Bomb. Was on the Dazed and Confused soundtrack, and that's the first time I heard of them. But really great stuff. So that was in the metal collection. So was this. Now, The Runaways. So was this. Queens of Noise. And Waiting for the Night. And last but not least, Live in Japan. The Runaways had like a really huge following in Japan for some reason. And so this is a really cool live record that I highly recommend. So I was glad to pick all that stuff up out of that collection, because I just decided I was going to. Last thing I want to talk about is some Leonard Skinner. I don't talk about Skinner much. During this, you know, this big metal haul, he had like over 100 Skinner records. I can't remember how many, but he had a ton. And growing up, Leonard Skinner was my favorite band for the longest time. Like even more than Zeppelin early on when I was first starting to get into playing guitar and all that stuff. I loved Leonard Skinner. And then as I started discovering some new things, I always liked Skinner, but especially the past decade, I haven't listened to Leonard Skinner hardly at all. And which is a shame because they were amazing, especially back in the early days, just phenomenal. And so I have been talking to a good friend that's been coming in the shop, and he's a Skinner fanatic, and he has been telling me a lot about Skinner and stuff I didn't know and forgot and all that stuff. So I watched this documentary, If I Leave Here Tomorrow, which is a really good documentary about Leonard Skinner. And I kind of, sorry, got some acid reflux. I picked some of the albums out that I hadn't seen before or needed or whatever. I do have some Skinner on vinyl, but this is a Japanese greatest hits type thing. 2 LP, really cool. I kept that. I just felt like I needed it. This is the Street Survivors with the Flames and the Obi Japanese press. So sweet. And I probably have like 4 copies of that. When I was a kid, my dad was always like, if you find that Street Survivors with the Flames, you gotta get it. It's worth a lot of money. It's not, but you know. Anyways, so I have like 3 or 4 copies. But this is a copy of Nothing Fancy. For some reason, Nothing Fancy was always a one I could never find, for whatever reason. But this is the one that in the documentary it talks about. They pretty much just threw this record together. This one had the least amount of thought and preparation put into it, but still a cool record. And this is like German press or something, yeah. And it's got the different text on the top, which is really cool. So that's the one I decided to keep. This one, which I've never heard, but I've always wanted. It's the album that they made in 1991 with what's his name, Johnny Vanzant. So that's cool. I've never seen one. This is like a European press. They're pretty tough to find. So I kept that one. And then this one, Steve Gaines, One Night in the Sun. I don't know that I've ever heard this album. And I pulled it out the other day and listened to it, and I was like, holy smokes. There was like 2 or 3 of these in that collection, so I put some out in the shop. But Steve Gaines was just a monster guitar player. Not only that, he had an incredibly, really rich, soulful voice as well. Incredible. I mean, I would have loved to have seen the progression of Leonard Skinner through the years. It's really sad that the plane crash happened like it did, but that's a really good one. And then I watched the documentary, The Story of Anvil. And I hate that I don't have any Anvil albums to show because I sold them all at Metalopocalypse 2020. But The Story of Anvil is a really cool documentary. If you're not familiar with Anvil, I've had a bunch of their records and I've sold them and I had no interest in keeping them. It was just like cheesy 80s metal that I didn't care about. I had never heard it, but I just could tell it wasn't something I was going to be interested in. And still, like, it's not anything that I'm going to love. But the story, it's Anvil. I think they opened up for Bon Jovi and they toured with like Queensryche and like bands like that. I mean, I'm not saying those specific bands, but bands like that. Anyways, and so like the beginning of the documentary, it shows them like on stage, like opening up like this huge coliseum of people, and everybody's like, and they're like just getting it, and the lead singer, his name's Lips. He's the lead singer and guitar player. He's just like a character, And then it goes through like, they just fell off the face of the freaking planet, and now they all have like regular, like minimum wage jobs, and they're trying to ramp their career back up. So it's a really cool movie, documentary, whatever. I would highly recommend watching that one. Jeremy from the shop made me watch that one. So, and then I just watched Gimme Danger like an hour ago. Really good Stooges documentary. So if you have any documentary recommendations, feel free to drop them in the comments below. Thank you all for watching this video. It has been too long of a video, but when I get talking about records, I just have a lot of fun. So sorry. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing that. If you like what you see. See you next time.